My stepdaughter hissed. I only listened to my real parents, so I dropped her from my insurance and froze her funds. Now she's paying for her own attitude. Don't forget to subscribe and share your experiences below. Let's get started. I used to believe you could earn your place in a family. That love, if you fed it long enough, watered it with kindness, and kept showing up, even when it hurt, would eventually grow into something solid. Like respect was a matter of waking up early, staying late, and never raising your voice unless the roof was on fire. That was before I met Jenna. I was 44. Grease under my fingernails, calluses where softness should have been. I spent my days fixing cars and my nights fixing silence. The kind that waits for a man when he comes home to nothing but cold dinner and a flickering TV. So when she walked into my garage needing a new alternator and left with my number, I thought maybe life was finally giving me something back. Jenna was light where I was weight. A divorced mother of two, worn at the edges but still fighting to stay soft. We started small: coffee, a movie, quiet walks in the park where she talked about her kids, and I listened like they were already mine. Caitlin was 15. Trevor, 13. Jenna warned me, they're still raw from the divorce. Don't expect miracles. I didn't. I wasn't trying to be their father. Just someone who stayed when others left. After a year, I bought a house. A one-story ranch with a crooked mailbox, rust on the gutters, and a backyard big enough for a dog to chase its own tail. I paid the down payment, signed the mortgage in full. The place needed work. I didn't flinch. Jenna called it cozy. I called it a second chance. We moved in together. Them and me. For people under one roof, all pretending the cracks in the walls didn't mean anything. In those first few months, it felt like a new beginning. I built a treehouse with Trevor. The thing leaned like a drunk, but he loved it. Caitlin picked out paint for her room. Pink and gold, like a pop singer's fever dream. I drove them to school, helped with homework, grilled burgers on Sundays. I even got Caitlin a dog, a rescue mutt that trembled like it didn't trust anyone yet. I thought maybe she saw something of herself in that dog. For a while, it worked. Jenna smiled more. The kids laughed. I let myself believe I was building something real. But love doesn't always rot from neglect. Sometimes it rots while you're tending it, while your hands are still bloody from trying. Caitlin changed first. It started with silence. Those small, strategic pauses after I asked her how her day was. Then came the sighs, the rolled eyes, the subtle ways she let me know I wasn't wanted. Trevor followed suit like a shadow chasing a storm. Jenna called it a phase. They're teenagers, she'd whisper as I stood there with receipts in one hand and dinner plates in the other. They'll grow out of it. I believed her. I kept paying. Piano lessons for Caitlin. Soccer cleats for Trevor. Private school tuition. New phones. Braces. Family vacations they sulked through like hostages. Still, I believed. Still, I showed up. I spent nights in the garage, fixing the dryer, patching the fence, keeping the cars running. My hands never idle, my heart always hoping. I bought groceries, paid for insurance, covered every unexpected cost without a single complaint. I thought if I kept building, they'd eventually move in. They never did. Father's Day came and went. Twice. Nothing. No card. No thanks. Not even a nod across the breakfast table. Jenna would look at me, guilt in her eyes, and say, they're just figuring things out. I was figuring things out, too. Figuring out how it felt to be invisible in your own home. To cook for people who only looked up to complain the chicken was dry. To fix the heating in December while the people you're keeping warm shut their doors behind you. Caitlin started introducing Jenna as my mom at school events, while I stood behind them holding the car keys like a stranger. Once, I overheard her telling her friend, yeah, my mom married the guy who pays for everything. They laughed. I didn't. Still, I kept paying. Trevor got a laptop for Christmas. Top of the line. No thank you. Just a shrug and, it's not the one I wanted. The dog I got for Caitlin bonded with me more than she ever did. I take it on long walks, sometimes just to breathe, just to be somewhere no one looked at me like I didn't belong. Jenna, for all her softness, didn't push back. When Trevor rolled his eyes at me or Caitlin ignored a direct question, she looked the other way. Pick your battles, she'd say. What she didn't say, none of those battles would ever be hers. I once sat on the back porch after fixing the garage door for the third time that month, sipping a beer, watching Caitlin scroll through her phone with that dead-eyed look. I asked her how school was going. She didn't answer, just turned and walked back inside. Trevor passed me on the way out and muttered, "She's not going to talk to you, dude. Why do you even bother?" Why did I bother? Because I thought love was earned. Because I believed if you worked hard enough, gave enough, bent yourself backward enough, people would notice. People would care. They didn't. Respect doesn't come from sacrifice. Not always. Sometimes it doesn't come at all. Still, I went on. Still, I stayed. A mechanic in his own house, fixing things no one thanked him for, believing that if he just held everything together a little longer, it wouldn't all fall apart. But the cracks were already there, and no one else was patching them. It didn't happen all at once. It never does. The kind of disrespect that destroys a house doesn't come crashing through the door. It leaks in, slow and steady, like a roof you've been meaning to fix. You don't notice it until the floorboards warp beneath your feet. I should have noticed sooner. It was little things at first. Caitlin's tone when she spoke to me. That sharpened edge she used on people she didn't respect. Trevor mimicking her laughter when I offered help. Jenna brushing it off with that tired line. They don't mean it. Always the same excuse. Always her silence doing the real talking. By the 5th year, they acted like the house was theirs. My name was on the deed, but I might as well have been a tenant. They sprawled on the couch I paid for, left dishes in the sink, called their friends over without asking. Caitlin once threw a party when we were out. Beer cans in the yard, a cigarette burn on the couch arm. I'd reupholstered myself. When I asked her about it, she just rolled her eyes and said, "Relax, you're not my dad." For words. Small, sharp, and final. Jenna defended her. "She's a teenager, Mike. You're overreacting." Overreacting. That word followed me like smoke. I kept paying anyway. Private school for Caitlin. She said public was too ghetto. New laptop for Trevor. He needed it for online classes. Every time I tried to say no, Jenna's face would tighten, like I was threatening the fragile peace we lived under. So I said yes. Again. 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 Love, I thought, was consistency. I didn't realize it was turning into servitude. The night everything changed was ordinary. That's what still gets me. Ordinary evenings hide the worst surprises. Dinner was spaghetti. Jenna was talking about some work drama, Caitlin texting under the table, Trevor watching videos on his phone. I just fixed the leaking faucet that morning, paid the electric bill in the afternoon, and transferred money for Caitlin's upcoming school trip before sitting down. I should have felt proud. Instead, I just felt tired. Then Caitlin looked up, saw the grease under my fingernails, and smirked. "You ever think about washing your hands before dinner?" she said. Not joking. Not playful. Just pure disdain. Jenna's fork froze midair. Trevor chuckled. I stared at Caitlin until the silence grew uncomfortable. She didn't look away. She didn't care. "Caitlin," Jenna said finally, soft but useless. "That's not nice." "It's true," Caitlin shot back. "He's always covered in oil or whatever. I don't even know how Mom can." She stopped herself, but not fast enough. The sentence hung there, unfinished but complete. I didn't say a word. Just stood up, walked to the sink, washed my hands until the water ran clear, and sat back down. No one spoke after that. We finished in silence. That should have been the moment I broke. But I didn't. Not yet. You don't quit after one insult when you've built your life around endurance. I'd been swallowing disrespect for years. What was one more mouthful? The real break came 2 nights later. It was late. I was walking past Caitlin's room when I heard her whispering. Her door was half open, the light from her phone glowing under her chin. Trevor was sitting on her bed. They were laughing. Quiet, cruel laughter, the kind kids use when they know they're safe from consequence. "Mom says he's trying too hard," Caitlin whispered. Trevor giggled. "Yeah, it's pathetic. He's like desperate or something." Then, softer, the line that ended it all. "I only listen to my real parents. He can stick to fixing cars." Their laughter cut through me like metal on bone. Not loud, but precise. Meant to wound. I stood there in the hallway, invisible again. The same man who'd paid for their shoes, their braces, their futures, now reduced to a punchline. 7 years. 7 years of meals, bills, repairs, and silent sacrifices. And that was what I was to them. A mechanic. A walking wallet with hands. I didn't say a word. Didn't burst in. Didn't yell. I just walked back to my room, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at my calloused palms until my vision blurred. Jenna came in an hour later, smelling like the cheap wine she drank on weeknights, and asked if something was wrong. I told her no, because in that moment, something inside me had already gone quiet. The part that wanted to fight for this family had stopped breathing. The next morning, I went through the house like a ghost, drove to work, fixed 3 cars, smiled at customers, said have a good one like I meant it. But in my head I was building a list, not of what I'd done wrong, but of what I'd paid for. By the end of the week, I had a folder on the kitchen table. Receipts, bank statements, tuition payments, insurance documents. Every cent I'd spent for that family since the day they moved in. The pile looked heavier than it should have, like proof of my own stupidity. That Friday night, dinner started the same as always. My cooking, their silence. Caitlin muttered something under her breath about the sauce being bland. Trevor snickered. Jenna pretended not to hear. Then Caitlin looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're nobody. Remember your place." The room went still. My fork paused midair. And for the first time in years I felt calm. I said, "All right." Just that. A single word. Calm. Controlled. Empty. Then I stood up, walked to the living room, and brought out the folder. Set it down in front of Jenna. The sound it made was final, the sound of something closing. "What's this?" she asked, blinking. "Every bill. Every payment. Every dime I've spent keeping this family standing." Caitlin snorted. "Are we supposed to clap or something?" I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on Jenna. "Starting tonight," I said. "That's over." She frowned. "What do you mean, over?" I pointed to the papers. Mortgage, insurance, phone plans, cards, school tuition, all of it. I shut it down. "Everything's been switched to your name." Caitlin's smirk faltered. "You can't do that." "I just did." Jenna's face drained of color. "Michael, don't do this. Please. You're upset." "No," I said. "I'm done." I turned to Caitlin. "You told me I was nobody, so now the embarrassment's on your dime." The silence that followed was deep and ugly. Caitlin tried to laugh, but it caught in her throat. Trevor stared at the table, pale. Jenna's hand trembled as she reached for the folder, scanning the documents like she could undo them by reading faster. The rest of the night moved slow. They shouted, pleaded, cursed. I didn't raise my voice once. By morning, the Wi-Fi was off. The streaming accounts canceled. The credit cards frozen. The utilities transferred. Caitlin was the first to break, crying that she didn't mean it, that I was taking things too far. But I knew better. They weren't sorry for what they said. They were sorry for what it cost. Jenna begged, promised things would change. But the promises sounded like everything else in that house. Pretty words with hollow centers. So I packed a bag, poured a cup of coffee, and told her the truth. "You let them treat me like a ghost. Now you can live with one." And when I walked out that door, the only sound I heard behind me was silence. The kind that follows the collapse of something that was never built right in the first place. I thought leaving would feel like escape, like air finally filling my lungs after years underwater. But it didn't. Not at first. It felt like dying in reverse. Everything I'd built collapsing inward, quiet, slow, final. I had spent years shaping a life around people who never asked me to. People who took what I gave and offered only silence in return. And now that silence was mine to keep. I moved into a garage apartment on the edge of town. 1 bedroom, no dishwasher. Ceiling fan that clicked all night like a clock counting the seconds of my solitude. The walls were thin, the water pressure was weak, but it was mine. Paid for with my money, my name, my sweat. For once, I knew exactly who I was doing it for. The day I moved out, no one followed. Not Jenna. Not the kids. I left a note on the fridge that said, "This house was never mine. Maybe now you'll see who held it up." I didn't expect a response. I didn't get one. The first few nights, I didn't sleep. Not really. My body stayed still, but my mind ran wild. Playing back every meal I paid for, every ride I gave, every time I let them spit in my face and called it parenting. I remembered Caitlin's birthday, the year I stayed up past midnight assembling that vanity she swore she needed. She walked into the room, barely looked at it, said, "Cool," and left. I remembered Trevor's science fair, how he forgot to tell me the date, then blamed me for not showing up. I remembered Jenna's excuses, every shrug, they're still adjusting. Like I was the problem for expecting basic decency. They had no idea how close I was to breaking long before I finally did. And now they were left with the bill. Because that's what love without respect becomes, a debt. And I had stopped paying. By the end of the week, Jenna called. I let it ring. Then Caitlin tried. Her name flashed on the screen, but I didn't answer. The voicemail was short. "We need to talk. It's important." I deleted it without listening twice. Let them sit in it. Let them taste what they made. I wasn't angry anymore. That's what scared me. I was clear. Cold. Done. 2 weeks later, I heard from Jenna again. A letter this time, handwritten, desperate. She said the utility bills were overdue. The credit cards bounced. Caitlin's private school sent a notice. Tuition past due. Attendance suspended. She ended it with, "I didn't realize how much you covered." No apology. Just the shock of a woman waking up in a house she never paid for, wondering why the lights wouldn't stay on. I read it once. Then I tossed it in the trash. Another week passed before I got the second letter. This one from Trevor. Sloppy handwriting. Crossed out words. No dear. No love. Just this. Mom's crying a lot. Caitlin's mad all the time. School's hard without the laptop. I missed the treehouse. I didn't mean what I said. I didn't know it mattered that much. I held that letter in my hands for a long time. Not because it touched me. Because it confirmed what I'd always suspected. They were never sorry for what they did. Only for what they lost. Letting go wasn't a clean break. I kept remembering the small things. Jenna asleep on the couch after work. Trevor handing me screws when we built the treehouse. Caitlin curled up with that damn dog I rescued. There were good moments. That's what made it harder. But good moments aren't enough when the daily weight is contempt. A smile doesn't excuse a year of eye rolls. A laugh doesn't erase the way your name dies in their mouths when they talk to their friends. And so I stayed gone. Word got around. Jenna's sister called me. Said they were staying in her guest room. Tight space, no privacy. Jenna had to pick up a second job. Caitlin switched to public school. Trevor's laptop stopped working, and they couldn't afford to replace it. The treehouse started to fall apart without anyone to maintain it. I didn't gloat. I didn't feel victorious. This wasn't revenge. It was gravity. They had built their lives on a foundation they pretended didn't exist. And now they were learning what it meant to stand on nothing. Then came the third letter. This one was different. Came in a plain envelope. No return address. The handwriting was neat, careful, intentional. It was from Caitlin. "Michael, I know I said you were nobody. I meant it at the time. I wanted to hurt you. I thought you were trying to replace my dad. And I hated you for that. But the truth is, he never showed up. And you always did. I don't know how to fix what I broke. I just wanted to say I see it now. I see you. And I'm sorry." I read it twice, then a third time, and then I set it down. Not because it changed anything, but because it almost did. Almost. Because here's the thing no one tells you. An apology after the damage is done isn't healing. It's just proof that the wound was real. I didn't write back. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I finally understood the value of my silence. I had given everything I had. Time, money, labor, patience. I poured it into a house that never felt like mine, into people who never saw me as theirs. And now, after everything fell apart, They wanted me to come back and glue it all together again. But I was done fixing what others broke while pretending it was my fault it didn't hold. Jenna sent one final message weeks later. A voicemail. Her voice was quiet. Raw. I wish I had stood up for you more. I see it now. They learned to ignore you because I did. I let them. I let you carry everything and acted like it was normal. And now I don't know how to carry any of it alone. I'm sorry, Michael. I really am. And for the first time since I left, I cried. Not for her. For the man I used to be, the man who thought love was enough. He deserved better. I don't know where Caitlin and Trevor are now. Maybe they're scraping by. Maybe they're thriving. Maybe they tell people they had a stepfather once, but he left. Maybe they leave out the part where they told him to. Maybe that's easier to live with. As for me, I'm quieter now. Leaner. Not just in body, in spirit. I don't try to earn love anymore. I don't audition for roles in families I wasn't cast in. I met someone months later. Her name's Emily. No kids. No ex-husband still floating in the background like a ghost with child support debt. Just her. Simple. Kind. She thanks me when I fix her sink. Smiles when I bring her coffee. Listens when I speak. She doesn't need saving. Neither do I. We built something small. Honest. Clean. I told her about Jenna. About the kids. About how long I stayed where I wasn't welcome. She just nodded. Took my hand. Said, "You didn't leave too soon. You stayed too long." That night, I slept like a man with no debts left to pay, because I had paid in full. Every tear, every ignored birthday, every slammed door, every "you're not my real dad," paid in full. And now, finally, I live in a space that doesn't punish me for showing up. So tell me, when your love is rejected long enough, and your labor taken for granted, when your name is forgotten in the house you built with your own hands, is it wrong to walk away? Or is that the first true act of love you ever gave yourself? It's strange, the silence that follows when a house stops being yours. You expect relief, maybe even peace. What you get instead is the echo of things you used to hold together. Doors that once slammed. Laughter that wasn't yours. The smell of food you bought but never tasted. For months after I left, I kept waking up before dawn. Old habit from years of responsibility. I'd roll over in bed and wait for the sounds that used to fill my mornings. The footsteps, the whining dog, the clatter of a teenager looking for cereal. Nothing came. Only the hum of my own breath. Only the stillness of a life stripped clean. You'd think that kind of quiet would heal you. It doesn't. It holds a mirror instead. Shows you every version of yourself that tried too hard, gave too much, stayed too long. Sometimes I still drive past that house. Not to spy, not to hurt, just to remind myself it's real, that it wasn't a dream I made up to justify my exhaustion. The grass is longer now. The porch light burned out. The fence I built is leaning again. It's like time decided to finish what I started. The slow decay of everything I tried to keep alive. Once I saw Caitlin out front. She didn't notice me. She was older, thinner, face drawn tight from something heavier than teenage spite. She was picking up the dog's leash from the lawn, whispering something I couldn't hear. For a moment, I thought about rolling down the window, saying her name, but I didn't, because I knew what would happen. She'd look up, startled, torn between pride and guilt, and I'd have to pretend it didn't matter. I didn't want that. I'd rather remember her as the girl who still laughed when we built the treehouse, before her laughter turned into something sharper. I drove on. It's easier to keep moving than to return to places where love was one-sided. People like to talk about forgiveness. They act like it's some kind of cure. You have to let go, they say, as if the act of walking away wasn't already letting go in the most painful way possible. But forgiveness is cheap when the other side never asks for it. When they send letters soaked in guilt, not understanding. Forgiveness isn't the same as amnesia. It's remembering without reopening the wound. And I remember everything. The sound of Caitlin's voice when she called me nobody. The way Jenna stood there, eyes down, pretending she hadn't heard. Trevor's laughter when the Wi-Fi died and he realized I'd cut them off. All of it carved into me like grooves on metal, permanent, unpolished, mine. But time has a strange way of sanding even the deepest cuts. There's a quiet kind of peace in rebuilding alone. You start with small things, a coffee mug, a shelf, a plant that doesn't need much light. You pay bills that belong only to you. You eat at your own pace, listen to your own silence. It's not loneliness, it's clarity. Emily helped with that. She didn't rush to fill the empty spaces. She let them breathe. When I told her the story, the real one, not the version people prefer to hear, she didn't interrupt. She didn't say, "You did what you had to." She just said, "That must have been heavy." Simple, honest, the kind of sentence that doesn't try to fix you. I hadn't realized how starved I was for honesty until then. We live in a small apartment now. 2 rooms, a little balcony overlooking a used car lot. I still work long hours, but when I come home, the air doesn't feel hostile. The quiet doesn't accuse me. She asks about my day, listens, laughs at my tired jokes. Sometimes she leaves notes in my lunchbox. Nothing fancy, just a small reminder that I exist beyond what I provide, that I am more than the hands that pay the bills. That's the difference between being needed and being wanted. One drains you, the other fills you back up. I don't pretend I'm blameless. Maybe I tried too hard to buy my way into love. Maybe I mistook responsibility for connection. Maybe I thought fixing people worked the same as fixing machines. Replace the broken parts, tighten the bolts, watch it run again. But families don't run on logic. They run on unspoken loyalties. And mine was always one-sided. If I could talk to the man I was back then, the one who stood outside that bedroom door, listening to his stepchildren laugh at him, I'd tell him to walk away sooner. Not out of anger, out of mercy. You can't save people from the lessons they refuse to learn. You can only stop paying their tuition. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if they ever talk about me. If Jenna tells her friends the story of the stepfather who snapped. If Caitlin defends me in those conversations or stays silent the way her mother did. I don't expect to know. Some debts stay unpaid. Some apologies stay unsent. But every once in a while, when the air outside smells like wet asphalt and pine, I remember the sound of that treehouse creaking in the wind. The one Trevor and I built, crooked but strong. It stood for years after I left. I imagine it's gone now. The wood would have rotted, the nails rusted. Nothing lasts forever when no one maintains it. Families are like that too. One night, Emily asked me if I missed them. I told her the truth. I missed the idea of them. Because that's all they ever were, an idea I built in my head. A family that might have been, if love had matched effort, if silence hadn't been louder than gratitude. I don't hate them. Hate would mean I still care enough to want revenge. I just wish them clarity, the same kind I finally found. Maybe one day they'll understand what it means to give without being asked, to stay without being thanked. Maybe then they'll see the shape of what they destroyed. Until then, I keep living. Quietly, cleanly, without debt. I still fix cars, still come home with grease under my nails. But when I wash my hands now, no one mocks me for it. No one sighs at the table. The small things matter more than they used to. The hum of the fridge, the scent of coffee at dawn, the sound of someone saying thank you like it's a prayer. Sometimes I catch myself smiling for no reason. Other times I feel the ache of ghosts. The sound of a girl's laughter before it turned bitter. The echo of a boy calling my name before he learned to resent it. Those ghosts don't scare me anymore. They remind me where I came from and what I survived. Because survival, in the end, isn't about starting over. It's about refusing to be buried in a house that doesn't know your worth. I gave them years of my life. I gave them a home. And when they spat on it, I walked away. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. That's love with its eyes finally open. And if there's any justice left in this world, the lesson they'll learn, the one I paid for, will last longer than the comfort they lost. So now I ask you, when the love you give turns to ash, when the house you built becomes a monument to your own invisibility, what would you do? Would you stay, pretending it still mattered? Or would you finally walk out the door, knowing that sometimes the most faithful thing a man can do is leave? Because I did. And for the first time in my life, the silence feels like peace.